Good morning, Dublin. I want Joe to come back on. That guy was amazing. He's like the 300 hours that are uploaded every minute. I think he knows every video that's being uploaded, right? And he's responsible, I think, for creating 5 of the top 10, my top 10. Like, wow, what a guy. Really, really cool. I'm here to bridge, I suppose, the gap between the content creators and the advertisers, the brands in the room, and to talk about how you can take a content strategy, a media strategy, to hopefully deliver the dizzy heights of success that Joe seems to be able to create on a regular basis with Condé Nast. We'll quickly run through a number of things over the next 45 minutes. So we'll talk about creating an effective video content strategy using the Hero Hub Help framework. I've got a quick case study to show you from BMW. And then we'll take a quick look at turning subscribers, getting more subscribers and viewers, dispelling a little bit of the myth of going viral. Actually, how do you go viral? You don't create a viral hit. There's something behind it that makes that work. And then last but not least, knowing what success looks like. When you're winning, how do I know that I'm winning? Why do I need a content framework is the first port of call. And the reason why we want to ask this question is, if we look at the bar all the way over on the right-hand side here, for me it represents something like getting ready for a really big night out, putting on your best outfit, doing your hair or shaving your head, getting everything ready, and then switching off your phone and sitting on the sofa and hoping that someone's going to ring the doorbell and come and visit you and take you out. Like, it's just putting all this effort in to be ready for something and then not doing anything about getting out there and letting everyone see your great outfit and having a great time of it. So a content strategy for me is about getting ready, turning your phone on so people can find you, and getting out there and making yourself big and bold so the world can see what a great effort you've made for being there. The content framework that we'll talk about, it comes in various different guises depending on which company is presenting content frameworks to you. We call it Hero Hub and Help. On the Hero side of things, for you guys, this is business as usual. This is the campaigns that you guys are creating around key moments in the year, around key events that you want to associate yourselves with. And it's effectively the moment where you get mass awareness through creating inspirational content, educational content, whatever it is that gets the most amount of your target audience to know that you have something to offer, and you're going to drive traffic through to whichever destination you want to continue to tell the story or potentially to convert into a sale or something like that. On the help side of things, we'll look at it in a bit more detail in a moment. For me, it's a really, really sad area of the brand's content strategy that we see, because most brands aren't really looking towards this, and it's such low-hanging fruit that you really should, if you take nothing else away from my section today, please think about the help content. This is basically the content that you should make to answer the questions that your audience have. So someone is looking for something related to your product or service or within your category, through Google search, through YouTube search, and you as a brand are not there to help to answer that question or to deliver a solution for them. So making that content just means that whenever someone is in that lower funnel stage, you as a brand are there. Sometimes through ads, but you can also do it through creating the right content and making sure it's available. And then last but not least, the hub side of things, from a YouTube perspective, of course, is your YouTube channel. But it can be other destinations. It can be your brand website. It can be your Facebook page. It's essentially the destination that you're driving traffic through to tell more of your brand story. And there's content that can be created specifically for the hub once you've gotten people's attention on the Hero side, or once you've communicated to them that you have a solution for them on the help side, and they come through to your hub and you continue to interact with them. So this is the regular pattern that most advertisers see when they're raising awareness about key moments and product launches throughout the year. And as we've said, the Hero side of things is generally kind of that inspirational, big and bold content. And more often than not, it's supported by media to make sure you reach as many people as possible. The example I've got to illustrate this, I'm a bit of a geek at heart, so there'll be a few geeky examples in here. This one is Lindsey Stirling, one of the world's most renowned violin players that maybe you haven't heard of if you're not one of her 6.6 million subscribers. And then Dragon Age, an EA Games release. So what they did was they used signals to inform on what do the Dragon Age audience like, and how can we leverage what we find out about that to then put that in front of our target audience. So they established that people that like Dragon Age, and actually people that like that kind of genre in general, Game of Thrones, those sorts of things, whether they know it or not, they're starting to become indoctrinated into the world of classical music, because classical music seems to support all the games and episodes in that space. So they made this realization through looking at what people were looking at in and around their genre. They built on this. They created a piece of hero content where they took a YouTube creator or a creator who was big on YouTube and asked her to become part of the content. So there's a 2-minute or so piece of hero content they created where she uses her violin as the weapon to defeat a dragon, and then the knight uses his sword, of course. And through doing this, there's a couple of wins that they got out of this. One, they were able to leverage the fact that she already had 6.6 million people captive on her YouTube channel that were most likely going to watch this content when it was posted. In addition to this, they used a media strategy to make sure that they had good presence on all key gaming channels and also an audience that was interested in gaming to make sure that everyone that loved gaming would see this particular ad. How and why was it successful? There's a couple of other metrics to think about, and we'll look at KPIs in a moment. One thing, 157,000 likes. Not bad, but to manage your expectations, a like is essentially clicking on a thumbs up. Relatively easy to do, I would say. What you want to keep track of is nearly 9,000 comments that sit below the video where people are talking about, I love this video, this is amazing, or I don't like this video, who is Lindsey Stirling, etc., etc. And these are the things, this is the nature of the platform. YouTube is not a broadcast platform, it's a two-way platform where you as a brand can have a conversation with your target audience. And one thing to think about as and when you reach the dizzy heights of some of Joe's videos, and in this instance, maybe 11.5 million videos views for your hero content, what's the contingency plan for managing your success? 8,500 people have posted a comment underneath your video. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to ignore it? Are you going to read it? Are you going to use those comments to inform on the next piece of content you create? Are you going to have some sort of plan in place to manage all the people that don't like what you've produced? You really need to think about how you're going to manage your success, because it's great that people are making comments, but what then? How is it going to inform on what you do next? On the hub side of things, the hub content and the hub itself is the place and the content that enables you to kind of tell the story in between peak moments. As much as any of us want to be, we can't be heroes all the time because, as I've said, generally it involves high touch, big budget productions, and more often than not a media strategy beside it. So as a result of that, it's quite expensive to always be a hero. So having a hub content strategy in place as well will enable you to tell the story for the bits in between. So the example I've chosen, giving and having a hub in itself will enable you to hopefully drive subscriptions. Subscribers become advocates. Advocates tell their friends how great your brand is, and hopefully either one of those two groups will hopefully go and make a purchase of your product. And subscribers tend to watch twice as much content as non-subscribers. So taking that into account, when you think about reaching the dizzy heights of 11.3 million views, if you've already got 6.6 million subscribers, you're only paying for 50% of those views, right? And that's kind of a win-win situation for you guys. To Joe's point around the first 24 hours, I think he spoke about a video that got 1 million views in the first 24 hours. More often than not, it's going to be your subscribers that drive those views, right? Because these are the people that have on their YouTube channel, they'll be subscribed to your channel, and it'll indicate in the feed there that there's a new video that's been uploaded to that channel. You click on that, and then you go through and you can see what new content has been uploaded to the channel. And those are the people, they want to be first in line, they want to watch the video first, they want to share it first, comment first, etc., etc. So having subscribers in place will enable you to start to deliver really, really good views, maybe even up to your first 1 million. And above and beyond that, we need to think about what other factors or what other assets we need to create to make sure that we get to the next 1 million views and beyond that. So the example I'm going to use to illustrate the hub content, everyone probably knows Turkish Airlines, whether you've traveled with them or not, for the Kobe, Messi, and now Drogba campaigns that they've created. And those are examples that we at Google use on a regular basis. It's great examples of hero content. They use the celebrity, they use a nice storyline, and they use a substantial media budget to make sure that everyone sees that Turkish Airlines is great and that they're working with stars. The story behind the story is also that normal people also travel with Turkish Airlines. And in the scope of normal people, Turkish Airlines decided to work with a group of YouTube vloggers that represented different categories. Damian Walters, the guy famous for running the human loop for Pepsi, and a number of other vloggers that were famous for traveling, taking good pictures, et cetera, et cetera. And what they wanted to do was to get these guys to tell their story about who they are and how they got to Turkey and what they did when they got there. And the outcome of this was that they were able to have a more authentic connection with all the different buckets of audience that they wanted to reach. They put them in a playlist, so when you find the first one, wherever you find it, whether you find it on the creator's channel or you find it on a blog or elsewhere, you'll see the first one and then you'll hopefully be pulled in to watch the next 9. And not bad results when you think about it. I mean, probably a lot cheaper than getting Messi and Kobe to come and be involved in your content. And in this instance, great view count for the playlist. And actually, one of the videos, not promoted by media, managed to amass 627,000 views. And that's fueled by 2 different things. One, a small bit of media support to make sure that all of the target audience saw it. And then Brodie Smith, in this instance, who delivered the success on that biggest view count, has a massive subscriber base. And they were super keen to see what he was creating and also what the other YouTube creators were creating. So the story in between the story. Last but not least, the help content. And the help content fills the void underneath. As I said, it's really that content that brands should be creating more of, because it's really just your evergreen, always-on content that means that you don't have to always be there with your ad campaign when someone's looking for you. The content lives, and as Joe's rightly said, if you have some good metadata, good title, good tags in place, people will find your content as and when they're in that search process looking for something in and around your category. I put this example in for myself. I actually used this series on a recent training that I did, and it was really useful. So Under Armour, challenger brand, they don't have the same budgets as the Nikes and the Adidases of this world to go out there and get people to go and buy their line of sports clothing. So they use signals to inform on what does my audience do when they're online? How do they prepare for the events in which they use the clothing that we produce? And they found a real affinity with the Tough Mudder training. And anyone who's done one of these events, you wear one of these kind of warm tops underneath to make sure that you don't freeze as you're crawling under barbed wire and going through the mud and all that sort of stuff. So the video series that they produced is how to prepare yourselves for climbing over these walls, how to do the monkey bars and all these sorts of things. And the series is absolutely perfect. To manage your expectation, you're not going to get millions of views in most instances when you create this content, because there aren't yet millions of people doing Tough Mudder events in the UK. But what there is a really, really strong group of people who, once they find this, they then instantly become fans of the brand, because the brand is giving something to them but not asking for anything in return. They're helping them to achieve their own personal goals. And there's no doubt in my mind that if you use this series of videos for your training, you won't need to see an ad when you want to go and make your next purchase for Under Armour, because you'll become a subscriber of their channel. You'll come back on a regular basis because these guys are always wanting to keep you prepared for these events. And you'll probably willingly go and buy their line of clothing, because fortunately for them, it's also really, really good clothing that helps to support when you're doing these cold events. Bringing it all together. I wanted to use an example from BMW to show this, because more often than not, we talk about the Red Bulls and the GoPros, and I think for a lot of brand advertisers, that's quite threatening when you want to try and become the next Red Bull, right? You want to go and get 5, 6, 7, 8 million subscribers and then get a view count of a minimum of 10 million views per video. That's really hard. So I wanted to use an example that brought it a little bit more down to earth. That's not to say that BMW didn't do an excellent job, but hopefully it's a bit more closer to where some of you are in regards to your own content strategy. So BMW, they wanted to launch the new M series, and they wanted to do so in a way that was jaw-dropping. And you know, the automotive space is quite crowded when it comes to creating fantastic pieces of content. You saw the Hyundai example earlier. I hadn't actually seen that one. That was absolutely brilliant. So that is your competition, right? Pretty tough. So these guys, they set out, they said, we want to create a piece of jaw-dropping content that not just M series lovers will love, but automotive enthusiasts across the board will love, and hopefully will inspire them to at least become advocates, if not purchasers of our cars. So I'll start by sharing the example with you. bad, right? So, thinking about it in terms of the framework, we've seen their piece of hero content there. They also created the more obvious content. So the hub content was really just focused around why is this car good for you? What's the experience inside the cockpit? What does the dashboard do? What's the engine like? How efficient is it? They answered all those questions through an informative content series that they created, because inevitably there will be people that have those questions. And on the hygiene side of things, once I've seen that video, I want to know how the hell they did it, so they filmed it behind the scenes, and that's becoming more of a common trend for brands that are creating kind of this hero content for a YouTube audience. They obviously want to tell the story behind the story, keep the cameras rolling, and use that as content to tell more of the story to their target audience. How did this look in sequence? Obviously, people who are fans of BMW and who are probably going to buy the M Series anyway, they already knew about this, and they were probably first on the list to go and buy the car. So before the launch of this hero moment that you saw, BMW released this content onto their YouTube channel so that they could give all the people who were kind of at that mid to lower funnel phase all the information they needed to make the informed purchase. The hero content was really directed at enthusiasts of the car and the brand, of course, but really at the people that didn't know. So it was really about getting mass attention towards the fact that this new car was available. And then, as I've mentioned, afterwards, how the hell did they do that was essentially their hygiene content strategy. And then, that bridged the gap between the next push that they made around that same automotive, same car with another piece of hero content. So, to manage your expectations on getting to 12 million views, this is not something that they just did based around this one car. If you look down here, back in 2010, they also had some success, 5 million views for a really nice piece of hero content they created. But getting to 12 million views, and doing so as much as possible without necessarily putting lots of media spend behind it, but also just focusing on creating the right content to tell the right story to your target audience at scale, it took them 5 years to get to that point. It doesn't always take 5 years, but it's not likely to happen overnight. If you go away today and you start on your content strategy, a lot of trial and error will go into informing how you should build your content strategy and how you can get to creating content like this for the YouTube generation and reaching the dizzy heights of 12 million views. They're very consistent. I wanted to test it if it was actually still a valid example to use for the presentation today. So this example is from last year, the BMW hero content you've just seen. So I did a search on YouTube and on Google for BMW, BMW M Series, Drift Mob, etc., etc. And in the top 1 to 3 results, every time for each of those words, they were one of the top results every time. So not only had they created a great piece of hero content, had a content strategy alongside, used media to make sure that everyone who wasn't aware of the release saw it, but they also really did their homework from a metadata perspective to make sure that they could be found by search engines. And everyone loved it. People talked about it. And you see the example, I saw recently a nice video from Cannes Lions on the Volvo Trucks example that we're not going to use today, but we often talk about as a great success story. And when we look at the media value of these sorts of executions, and we think about the success of Volvo Trucks and Jean-Claude Van Damme doing the splits and the overall series behind that, in that instance, they got a media value of $160 million for not the same amount of investment. In the instance of BMW, it wasn't the same extent, but they certainly got great media value as a result of creating a good strategy and great pieces of hero content. Beyond the basics. So considerations for creation and programming. Just quickly, so we often take standalone sessions to look at the 10 fundamentals. So as a follow-up to this, we'd be more than happy to go through this in more detail for you, but I just wanted to give a whistle-stop tour of the 10 fundamentals today, because these are some of the considerations that you might want to have. Oh, I'm in the way. In regards to informing on what content you should create and how and why. So the 10 fundamentals, looking at it kind of row by row, getting audiences, being discoverable, making sure that your labeling is good, making sure that your metadata is good, essentially making sure that you can be found. Making sure that your content is accessible. Let's assume that you create a 5-part series for your YouTube channel and you post it online, but I, as a user, find it on a blog or on a Facebook page or on a Twitter post, etc., etc. I watch that one, and if you guys haven't formulated it in such a way that it makes it accessible, I just think there's one piece of content. It's really, really easy through in-video programming for one, to connect that one piece of content to all the other pieces of content in the series. So you can use cards, for example, for that, or annotations if that's what you've been using. And of course, you can do the obvious and say, this is episode 2 of a 5-part series. Come to our YouTube channel and watch more. Is it shareable? Making content shareable, there's no magic formula for this. But of course, making content shareable saves you guys having to do some of the heavy lifting to get in front of the people that you want to reach. Making it collaborative. We saw the example with Lindsey Sterling earlier. It's a fantastic way to work with people that already have a big online audience to get more organic connection with your target audience through leveraging their reach. Keeping audiences happy. I've got an example of that in a moment. Are you actually making content that your target audience would want to see? Or are you making content that you would want to see and hoping that your target audience might like it? So making content for the people that you're trying to talk to. Is it conversational? YouTube is a two-way platform. It's not a broadcast platform. So using comments to inform on what you should create, responding to those comments, and also speaking to the audience on a one-on-one basis in the same way that Joe did with the 73 questions, really kind of having that more personable approach really works on platforms like YouTube. Interactivity, if you've seen the example from Slap Jamie Oliver, one of my favorites, using in-video programming so that you can actually change the story as it's played out is a great way to have an interactive kind of format for your videos. Is it consistent once you start telling a story? Will you continue to tell that same story, or will you go off on a massive tangent and lose all the people that subscribe to your channel? And then last but not least, keeping you guys happy. Is it sustainable? So once you've set yourselves up, are you able to continue to tell that story for the next year? Or are you able to continue to create content for the next year, 2 years, et cetera, et cetera? When you make your content strategy, make it for the long term, not just for the campaign you're working on right now. And then we've seen Joe's example, so I don't need to speak to authenticity, but being authentic to yourselves and to your audience will always enable you to continue to tell the best stories that work well for you and your audience. Quick example of discoverability. So this is from the Barely Political channel, big YouTube channel. And what they do very well from a discoverability perspective is they are just 100% perfect in getting their metadata, their targeting, their labeling, everything else really, really tight to make sure that their content can be found. Building on that, we saw the trends earlier on the dress side of things. In this particular instance, they leveraged Kesha's popularity and created a spoof on Kesha, and the resulting piece of content has now got over 670 million views because essentially every time Kesha puts out a new song, people look for Kesha, they find her music videos, and they probably find this piece of content as well. So it will just keep coming back to life as people are searching for her or for this specific piece of content. Targeted, this is a really, really obvious example, so I apologize for that. Sky Does Minecraft, massive YouTube channel. Their audience loves Minecraft. They love Minecraft, they make content for that audience. Easy. It's not always that easy for brands to do that, to make the content that they know their audience are going to love. But we have a small section towards the end on YouTube Analytics, which should help to inform on what content is working on your channel, who are you reaching, which audiences like which pieces of content, and you can kind of build your targeted strategy around that. And then last but not least, on the sustainable side of things, Phil DeFranco, he's been building his YouTube channel for the last 7 years. That's sustainability. And he's done so very much in relation to the time, the resource, and the budget he's had available at that moment to make the best content he could. So over time, he's gone from being kind of the typical bedroom vlogger to becoming kind of more of a high production value vlogger. But along the way, he's been able to do it in a way that he's programmed his scheduling and he's allocated his budget and his time to make sure that he can actually continue to tell that story. And it really works well for him. So I would say always look towards your peers if you want to understand how to kind of inform on your content strategy and see who from your peer set is doing a great job. But also look towards some of these guys, the YouTube creators, the PewDiePies with 36 million subscribers, because they also did a good job of it, and they can also give you some good insight on how you can do it better for yourselves. Just to round off this section, when it comes to programming and when you go away from here and you think about how you're going to start to build your content strategy, typically we see brands uploading content in this kind of format. To be honest with you, it doesn't really work because your audience are always on. They're always on YouTube, they're always on digital platforms, and if you upload every now and then, and don't let people know when you're uploading, and you have no kind of regularity in there, then it's kind of hard for them to know when, if they should come back to your channel. A typical YouTube creator will upload more like this, which I appreciate could be quite daunting if you're at the very, very beginning of your content strategy. But that being said, if you think about the BMW example that we've just seen, they think about the whole year and how they're going to create their content strategy around that, and perhaps they could create the hero content, but 10 pieces of hub content and 20 pieces of hygiene content, and then program it something like this, and then all of a sudden it's not so daunting because you're making that hygiene content in one session, the hub content in one session, and then you're stretching it out to make sure that you're maintaining interest with your audience throughout the campaign duration. And then last but not least, turning the people that you've captured as viewers into subscribers. It's as easy as remarketing to the people that have viewed your videos. So once people have seen your hero content, create more content so that once they've seen that piece of hero content, you can use a cookie and you can remarket to that audience and make sure that they see the next episode or the next part or the behind the scenes part of your story. In addition to that, the people that are already subscribed to your channel, that's a pool of people that you can talk to through remarketing as well. So not only when they're on your channel, but when they're on YouTube in general, you can reach them through remarketing to make sure that they also see the latest episode of your content. And you can create a custom combination so that you can reach viewers and subscribers of your content and make sure that you're always telling the next stage in the story to them. On the ad side of things, ads don't always need to be ads. I think Joe has kind of laid that out for us in the previous presentation. More often than not, brands forget to create a channel trailer to welcome people to their YouTube channel. Your channel trailer is a great way to say, this is who I am on YouTube. It helps to define the voice of what your YouTube channel is about for that audience. You can also use that same piece of content to tell people about when they should come back to your channel, how regularly, which days you do what. And as a result of that, hopefully they'll come back time and time again and watch more and more of your content, and you won't need to use ads to get them back into your channel every time. Use this as an opportunity to tell them to subscribe to your channel. Use it as an opportunity to tell them what it is you want them to do as your audience and what the benefits of that would be. And then don't be afraid to use that same piece of content once you've got the perfect channel trailer in place as a TrueView ad itself. There's no reason why you can't use a piece of content that wasn't intended to be an ad but really drive subscriptions as a piece of content that you're going to use as an ad to drive subscriptions. Use your YouTube analytics to see which content is driving which KPIs that are important to you as a brand. Take that piece of content and make it an ad. You never know, it might also drive subscriptions at scale, so use it. Going viral. Joe said that going viral was easy, and I was like, man, he shouldn't have said that. Going viral is really hard. To the point that Joe made at the start, towards the start of his presentation, there's a lot of content out there. It's a great big haystack of content. So finding your way amongst that is very daunting, to say the least. And as we've said, brand videos aren't getting the recognition they deserve. And that's got a lot to do with the fact that they maybe don't have a content strategy or a media strategy in place to get that recognition. We've seen a lot of brands working with YouTube talent, Instagram talent, digital talent in general to try and reach their target audience. And sometimes they're coming back and saying, oh, well, no, it didn't work because, we made this great piece of content and we got a celebrity, whatever that celebrity might be, in. But most of our views were on the wrong audience, or some of the views were in a different country. And, at the end of the day, you don't want to stop people from seeing your branded content because they live in another country. If it's great content, people want to share it, you want people to watch it. But if your KPI is to reach a certain audience at scale, and you haven't actually put anything in place to do that, then more often than not, you'll come back a bit disappointed that your collaboration didn't work to the extent that you wanted it to. So a couple of things to bear in mind. Some views, when you create branded content in collaboration with a YouTube creator, for example, they might not come and reach your target audience. They might not be viewed for the duration of the campaign. If we think about the slide that we saw earlier, subscribers will watch that video within the first 24 hours. They're the hungriest people on the platform. Then what? If your campaign lasts for 6 weeks and all your views take place in the first couple of days, you're going to have 5.5 weeks of waiting for people to come to you, dressed up for date night with nowhere to go. So, as you can imagine, the suggestion would be, how much of your views can be delivered based on your subscriber base on your channel? How much of your views can be delivered through collaborating with talent, digital talent, across the digital ecosphere, to help you to reach more of your audience. And bear in mind that some of those views won't be within your target audience. How many of those views need to be supported by a media strategy to make sure that you can reach the audience you actually want to reach with the message you're creating? And then hopefully you can reach your goal. And your goal can be anything from views to engagement to sales. But before you put that video online or before you even make that video, think about what the goal is and then think about which actors and which content and which media strategy can help you to reach that goal. How do you find the right people? If we use the Tough Mudder example from before, there are 3 pools of data that can be used in that sort of example to find the audience that you're looking for. So different signals. Google data. We can tell you that people who are in your target audience, people who like specific content, or people that like your brand, like to watch certain things or are searching for certain things. You, of course, as a brand, have data from your own owned and operated platforms, from your Twitter accounts, from your own brand websites, and there's third-party data. All these things can be used to inform on what content should I create and where should I put that content to make sure that my target audience sees it. On the context side of things, using the BMW example, what they did so well beyond what we've seen and discussed is that they made sure that their ad appeared on all the different areas where automotive enthusiasts might be. So that comes in various forms. It's YouTube channels where automotive enthusiasts go on a regular basis, Top Gear, M5 Boardroom, and Gumball, and all these sorts of channels where you will find people that love cars. And of course, people that love cars aren't always on channels about cars. They're also on other channels enjoying other content. So using data, using affinity segments to find automotive enthusiasts wherever they are. And then last but not least, choice, leaving things to choice. So I think by now most of you, if not all of you, are familiar with the TrueView format. And I wanted to use this example to talk about choice specifically. So to get rid of the misconception that Evian sat down with a brief of creating a viral ad, they made this amazing content, and then over 100 million people viewed it, that's not actually how it worked. They sat down, they've been building a content strategy for years. They have a story that they want to tell, and they want to make sure that they can get it in front of as many people as possible. And so in order to do that, they had a really great piece of content. They put it in front of all of the people that they wanted to see it at scale, substantial scale, within that first 72 hours when it was live. And then luckily for them, because it was such a great piece of content, it was embedded, it was shared, it was commented, it was liked, and then it reached the dizzy heights of the 100 million or so views that it has to date. So this is the typical pattern that we see across all of the kind of viral hits that we've seen over the last years. Take the example of the World Cup video with Ronaldo and Nike, very crowded space from an advertiser perspective. So how do you make sure that your video gets 100 million views? You make sure that in the first 72 hours, as many people as possible see it. And then hopefully those people will share, like, et cetera, and then it starts to gain a life of its own. And that's the way it goes with these big success stories that we see. This slide probably should have been first. Knowing what the goal looks like, so where to begin, like what are you going to use to measure success? So if we look at your YouTube analytics account, we'll look at mine in a second. It's really sad, so you can feel really good about yourselves. Putting the K in KPI, there's over 50 different metrics that you can measure on YouTube to gauge whether you're being successful or not. Which of these are important to you as a brand? Most brands think that a good view count means that you're winning on YouTube or a digital platform. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. If you want to think about it from the perspective of views, I would think more in terms of watch time, because surely contact time with your target audience is more valuable than just being in front of people. It's entirely up to you. If you take nothing else away from the kind of KPI section, think about this and use your YouTube analytics account to inform on this. Am I reaching the right audience? As you'll see in a moment, you can see from your YouTube analytics who you're reaching and which percentage of your views are being seen by males, females, and different age groups. Which countries are my views being seen in, and with what extent? Am I making the right content? You can see my example in a moment on completion rates. Are people watching my video all the way to the end? Are they dropping off after the first 10 seconds? Probably because they've skipped away. Are they dropping off after 2 minutes? What happens at 2 minutes that makes people drop off? And then sometimes you see a spike somewhere in the middle, and you're like, what the hell happened there? And more often than not, it's a lady in a bikini, or someone makes a funny joke, and people rewind to watch it again, and then you get this spike in the retention curve. And then last but not least, are they making the right actions? What are the right actions for you guys? Shares, subscriber gains, click-throughs, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of things to think about, but in the simplest terms, think about these and it can really help to inform on your scorecard for success. So as I said, this is my rather sad YouTube analytics account. Everyone can access their YouTube analytics for your brand channel through the right-hand side here. You click on your profile and then you go through to the Creator Studio. And then you have this toolbox of things to gauge how, where, and why you're being successful on YouTube. I'm not being very successful on YouTube. I have 140 views on my channel. I've uploaded one video. We'll look at that video in more detail in a moment. But this is kind of the story of what not to do from me. So to start with, and I apologize if you guys are using this on a regular basis, but I think it's just worth calling it out nonetheless. You can start to see everything from view reports to which devices, how your audience is being retained, how your audience are engaging, which videos are driving that engagement, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of a geek's playground, for want of a better word. And you can look at that as a channel overview, as a brand overview, or you can look at that for specific content. So breaking it down to specific countries that you're reaching and demographics, you can start to see that, for example, the US male aged 18 to 30 is driving my views. Am I making the content that speaks to that audience? Is that audience different to the audience that I'm reaching on my brand channel? If so, how can I kind of make those two meet in the middle? This is mine. All my views are being driven by the Netherlands, so thanks to everyone in the audience from Holland. That's great. You can look at which markets are driving it, and then you can also look at the Dutch audience are more interested in all the other countries. That's because it's actually in conjunction with a Dutch YouTube star, which is not very well known outside the Netherlands. So naturally, a lot of the other countries watch it for about 10 seconds and then go, I don't know her. Who's that guy? Who cares? And they go away. So this is that video. And you can see this is the retention curve. We made a 16-minute interview, which apparently after 30 seconds gets really, really boring. And then everyone disappears. But yeah, I mean, use this to inform. So maybe it doesn't need to be a 15-minute interview next time, right? Maybe we need to find a way to make it into a 30-second interview so that people will actually watch it to the end. And we can build from there. So have a look at that. And as I said, sometimes you'll see a spike somewhere in the middle. Look and see what caused that spike. You're able to kind of watch the video in real time and then track where that spike takes place. What did you do at that moment that made people rewind it and watch it again? Do more of that, because that's what people want to see, right? And then last but not least, as one of the engagement metrics, I've got one dislike on my video and no likes. Thanks. Why did that, which video drove that dislike? Don't make so many videos that drive dislikes. So yeah, just the different engagement metrics you can work with, have a think about it, and have a think about taking some of those videos and then repurposing them and using them to drive likes, subscribers, comments, et cetera, in the form of TrueView, for example. Key takeaways. If you're relatively new to creating your brand presence on the YouTube platform, or even if you're thinking about how I might start again or build a new content strategy for my YouTube channel, start by thinking about the voice of the channel. Every digital platform, every property in your portfolio has a different reason for being, right? What is the voice of your YouTube channel? Why are you creating the content for it? And the content you're creating, does it align with the voice of that channel? Because if it doesn't, maybe it shouldn't be on your YouTube channel. Use a content framework. Take out a spreadsheet and work out what you're going to do and when in conjunction with the moments that matter to you and the moments that matter to your customer, and then map it out and think about, if I was going to create this content, could I do it for the duration of a year, 2 years, to cover off all the different campaigns we're working on? And will it align with the other platforms where I also want to have a presence? So we're not creating content at sporadic times across the board. Give more than you take. So the example for me from Under Armour was a great example. They gave me something, I didn't have to buy anything. They gave me something to help me with something that I wanted to achieve. And as a result of that, I think better of the brand. Give more than you take and people will subscribe. And then you'll start to drive more of those free views. Establish what success looks like up front. We see so many people who have 10 million views and you're like, 10 million views, that's great, right? And they're like, I don't know, is it great? Should it be 100 million views? You should know that 10 million views is good before you deliver it so that you know when you're winning. And then last but not least, don't put on your best outfit, get ready, do your hair, everything. turn off your phone, sit on the sofa and hope that someone's going to ring the doorbell. It won't happen. You also have to promote yourselves. You have to put yourselves out there, and then hopefully you will deliver the next viral hit. Thanks.